Congresswoman, thank you so much. Great to see everybody. I know many of you. I'm Jonathan Dworkin, Vice President for Policy and Communications at NewDEAL. I want to welcome up our next speakers to kick off a series of conversations about how folks are effectively implementing the American Rescue Plan. We have Chelsea Powell from Results for America and Dave Coulter, County Executive here in Oakland County, Michigan. So welcome.
Let's try this one. Yes? Awesome. That was an incredible introduction to our day from all of the amazing elected officials in Michigan. I am Chelsea Powell. I'm with Results for America, a national nonprofit. I'm here to talk about how we can make the most of the American Rescue Plan investments and so many other opportunities that have come through this historic time. Also just wanted to say hello from Wisconsin, the other side of the lake. I have a few friends in the room that also made the trip over, maybe as early as me this morning, and we are very glad to be here with you. So excited to be up here with County Executive Dave Coulter. Nice to meet you. Read a little bit of your bio. I think it's incredible that you have led the county through the pandemic right after you started. Great work. And your prior decade as the mayor of Ferndale.
Yeah.
Woo!
Go Ferndale. For you local people.
So we're going to have a conversation about what you are doing in your community and just more broadly about the tremendous opportunity to invest these dollars in a way that is going to have the biggest impact for our residents.
Well, Chelsea, I do think we have a challenge because we're coming on right after lunch. Everybody's eaten. I haven't seen anyone take a break yet. So you guys, we're going to try to do our best to fire you up. I wore socks that could help. I don't know. But thank you. Thank you all for sticking around and not leaving on break as we talk about, I think, a really important subject, which is not only how did you spend your ARPA dollars, which is kind of a common conversation, which is great, but how did you measure it? How do you know that it's actually making an impact? And that's what I look forward to chatting with you about. So.
Absolutely. We should sit. All right. Well, this has come up a couple of times this morning already, but I think it is so important and exciting to be in a room full of people that want to use these federal funds to have the biggest possible impact for your residents and leaders that believe that good government is the way forward. So glad to be here with you all. I'm going to take my notes. I didn't realize I was going to be holding a mic and doing notes at the same time, but I'm going to do it anyway. We are in the middle of a $4 trillion opportunity. And within that, you have your American Rescue Plan dollars, you have your bill dollars, you have your IRA dollars, and opportunities like CHIPS and Science Act. One of the most incredible things about the American Rescue Plan is the SLFRF funds that are flexible and offer a tremendous opportunity to transform your community in service of key economic outcomes, in service of a more competitive workforce, in service of in service of growing economic mobility, which we are going to talk about, in service of racial equity outcomes, and of better infrastructure and climate resilience. We at Results for America have been around for a decade. We help governments use data and evidence to maximize their impact, which I think resonates in this room. Effectiveness is a key part of what you all are trying to accomplish, and being able to measure your impact is a huge part of the then storytelling that you can give to your community about what works. And as you choose how you're going to invest your dollars moving forward, it's critical to know which of the innovative ideas that you have tried through these influx of dollars are going to have and have had the biggest impact on outcomes in your community. Very briefly, I'll just share, because this is an idea summit, the Results for America idea that I would like to talk about just quickly with you is that we noticed from all of the American Rescue Plan annual reports that there's a tremendous amount of pilots and innovative ideas that jurisdictions all over the country are doing. 40% of 150 cities and counties in all 50 states that we reviewed showed that they were investing in pilot initiatives. Fewer than 15% were ready to evaluate the impact of those initiatives, and we see that as a gap. And so we have, in partnership with Powell North America, created an opportunity to train governments on how we can evaluate the impact of those programs. And not just what is the opportunity to do a randomized evaluation, but also how can we leverage these dollars to build government skills, to build the capacities in a jurisdiction, in a county, to actually think about collecting that data on the front end, designing an evaluation, making those decisions long-term that are based on what actually works. And so we have a ton of opportunities that are coming up. We have a workshop series that starts tomorrow. We have training sprints over the next 2 years. I'm happy to share more information about all of these, either in our conversation or after this. And we would love to have you and your teams participate so that you can get closer to knowing exactly what's working best for your constituents. So with that, I've talked a bunch. I am going to pass it over to the county executive to talk about what you're trying, what you're learning, and how you're putting money toward economic mobility in your community.
Yeah, well, thank you. So the first thing is that initially, before ARP dollars, we got CARES Act dollars. Some of you might remember that. And those had to be spent very quickly. And so that was what we considered in Oakland County more for acute needs, right? The keeping businesses open and just identifying the myriad of things that COVID had exposed. But when we got ARP dollars, and for Oakland County, we got $244 million. I've been in elective office now for 20 years. I never thought I'd see the day I could say, we got $244 million to do important stuff with. What the lens we put it through was, it needs to be transformational because we're not going to get this chance again, and let's hope not. Let's hope there's not another pandemic. But it also, there has to be a sustainability plan to it because we're only going to have these funds for 3 years, and then it either has to live on its own or we have to figure out a way to pay for it. So with those two lenses, we looked at the things that we could do. I want to talk to you about one specific program because, measurement is important to me. I'm also going to say this. I'm the first Democrat to ever be the county executive in Oakland County, Michigan. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Oakland County. Yes! It's a big place, 1.3 million people, bigger than 9 states, so it's kind of like being the governor of a small state. And yet, to my surprise, when I got there, I was shocked by how little measuring these business-minded Republicans that preceded me actually did. There's a lot of anecdotes about programs, but not a lot of measuring, so that surprised me a little bit. But I'm all about data and measuring, and so I knew that if we were going to be able to convince our residents that what we were doing is important, that we had to measure it. And one of key priorities, one of the things that I was passionate about even before the pandemic, was on getting people more education and training. We know that a high school degree just isn't going to get you the job that can help you raise a family and be successful in the coming years. And so getting more of our residents with some sort of a post-secondary degree or industry-recognized certification was a huge goal of ours. It's also, fortunately, a goal of our Democratic governor, Gretchen Whitmer, who set a goal that she wants to have 60% of Michigan adults with some kind of post-secondary degree or certification by 2030. She calls it 60 by 30. Well, I took a look. We're a pretty prosperous county. Our talent, what draws a lot of companies to Oakland County. So I asked the question, where are we? And we were at 61%. So then I said, well, I guess we could just sit on our laurels for another 9 years.
No.
Of course we can't do that. So we got together the education leaders, the labor leaders, everyone who touches this space. And we if the county were willing to make an investment and convene and do this work, what do you think we could do? And they're the group that decided that we could get to 80%. So we call it Oakland 80 in Oakland County. And it's a very comprehensive program, but there's the number one measurement, right? We're trying to get to 80%. The residents can see it, they can feel it, and I'll be judged in 2030 if we didn't do it, but they can understand it. But there's obviously a lot of metrics that underline that. It's about raising wages and income. It's about unemployment. Here's, talking about measures, here's some I think, eye-opening measures is why we tell this story to our residents about why it's so important to invest in this space. A resident in Oakland County who doesn't have a degree or certification makes, on average, about $25,000 a year. Somebody with a degree or certification makes $69,000. It's the difference between $12 an hour and $30 an hour. There's polling that shows too many people think that you can get by with a high school diploma, and I think we know that that's not true. So we've been working at it, a lot of different ways that we can talk about. There's a lot of different strategies, but I'm proud to report that in 2.5 years since we launched this program, we've gone from 61% to 69% of our residents with a degree or certification. I'm committed to getting to 80%, but it takes strategy, it takes intentionality, and then you got to measure it, right?
You got to measure it. And one thing that is great about sort of the national movement to get to 60% post-secondary attainment that you are a leader on is that there are evidence-based models that are already proven across the country. And one thing that we love to sort of shout from the rooftop at Results for America is that you do not have to come up with everything on your own. There are models out there that have been proven to be effective, and you can use them. And you can also localize them and listen to your constituents and set goals that are appropriate and pick the models that work best for you and your community. So if you don't want to stand up an evaluation for whether this program has impact because it's brand new, which we do highly recommend, you can also find a model that works and that has been shown to work across the country. I think post-secondary attainment is such an important lever for our economic growth and prosperity. And I do think, being a Midwesterner, I have seen this throughout my career, that we really believe in the Midwest that you can have that career that will sustain your family with a high school diploma. And that is not what our economy looks like anymore. That's not what our businesses look like anymore. I live in a sort of small manufacturing city, Racine, Wisconsin, and most of our businesses' entry-level positions that could potentially build into a long-standing career requires some training or certification. And these are manufacturing companies, and they are the heart of our community. But our students who are coming out of our high schools need that next step. They need partnerships with post-secondary institutions. They need navigation. All of these things that you are doing are so critical.
I was going to say on that point, so we literally have 6 people, full-time navigators that touch these folks, help them out, because one of the first things that I heard when we got the educators and the skilled trades and all the folks together was, Mr. Executive, we don't necessarily need help in enrolling students. We're doing okay with that. It's keeping them in because life happens. A bump in the road happens. They lose their car. They get pregnant. There's a death in the family. And they drop out because it's easy to do, and they don't have. Some of us did when we were younger, and they don't come back. So the key focus for us has been people who had started school or started a training and then getting them back in. And then the other ironic part is one of the things we also heard was parents push their kid into 4-year school and universities. That's just, they were trained to believe. And so part of the education is parents to say, did you know that if your son or daughter wants to operate a bulldozer, that they'll pay him or her $40 an hour after high school to do that and pay for their apprenticeship program at the same time? There are opportunities short of a 4-year degree, and that's a real education for the parent. So there's a lot of work to do in it, but if we can change the narrative on that, I don't think anything else would have a more dramatic effect on our economic success in our county.
Absolutely, and I think particularly with the guidance in the American Rescue Plan. Oh, I lost it keeps going out on me, particularly within the guidance, within the American Rescue Plan, listening to community, using evidence-based models, investing in your own capacity to do this sort of assessment and evaluation and progress monitoring and goal setting so that you have the ability to not just start the program and watch it get implemented, but to support its implementation along the way, and to do, whether it's progress evaluations to sort of, or process evaluations to sort of see what's working just within implementation, or impact evaluations at the end. We know that in healthcare, navigators are a proven model for ensuring that folks are getting the services they need. It is completely appropriate to evaluate whether navigators in the post-secondary system could also be seen as a proven model. And if they are, how do we shift dollars toward that as a long-term investment if we know that's what works? And I think one of the great things about this group of leaders and this Idea Summit is that you can take, and tied to the American Rescue Plan investments, is that you can take those great ideas that you have and you can really make the case through true outcomes that are felt by your community so that you can move from 61 to 69% of your students having or your adults having post-secondary credentials, which, considering the time frame of a pandemic, is exceptional.
And on the notion of navigators, they've proven to be such an important tool because people can get information on the internet, they can get it in different places, but the folks that we're trying to reach really need someone to help them out, someone to sit down and say, look, here, I got a plan for you. And we've done the same thing, this navigator notion, with our small businesses. We realized after the pandemic, after the CARES Act, that women, minority, and veteran-owned small businesses have unique and additional challenges, and we wanted to look at our county through an equity lens as well. So we also hired a team of business navigators to literally say, what's your business plan? Would you have a social media plan? Do you know how to get capital? All of these things. Because even though the information is sort of out there, it's really difficult to access for a lot of these folks who are busy running their business or trying to raise their family and live a life. And so this notion, if you can invest in it, of actual navigators whose full-time job is to help people, it's been a game changer for us, not only on the education front, but on the small business front as well.
So one last question for you, because I think we're almost done with our part of this panel. You are the county executive. You don't educate students. You're not responsible for making sure that their butts are in chairs. How did you decide that educational attainment would be a priority for you running a county? And how did you bring your county along, your constituents along with you on that? Or was it they were all in?
I mean, that's a great question, because I had the same issue when I was mayor. The mayors of a city don't typically run the schools either. But I used to tell our community, because we leaned in and did whatever we could to help to support the community, the schools, because it's important to a successful community. So I took the same approach here, right? It's like, yeah, I know we don't run the schools, but our kids are important and our schools are important, and we need to invest in it. I got less pushback on the schools, by the way, than I did with mental health. In Oakland County, there's a mental health authority that is outside the purview of government. But I saw the statistic that only 1 out of every 5 adults that needs mental health services actually get it, and then that only got worse during COVID. So we spent more money on ARP dollars on mental health services than on anything else, including educational. And there was some pushback about that, but I'm like, we can't afford to ignore these issues that intersect so many other parts of what we're trying to do as a county government. And so, I don't know, I just put my head down and said, we'll measure it, we'll give you the results, thank you. But these things are too critical. And everybody, especially after COVID, sort of understood, especially around mental health, how important that was. So we just did it.
Yeah. The benefit of being a local leader, sometimes you can just push forward and people come along. So that's exceptional. It's so great to hear about what you're doing. Just as a last reminder, our program that we're doing at Results for America in partnership with the Poverty Action Lab, the research arm of MIT, is actually called LEVER, which stands for Leveraging Evidence and Evaluation for Equitable Recovery. And there's tons of opportunities to engage so that you can get the resources and capacities that you need on your team, in your staff, in your jurisdiction to really measure the impact of how you're spending this historic investment in local government and our communities.
And if I could just say one last thing, it's this. If you've never been to Michigan before, or Detroit before, or you haven't been here in a long time, we're very proud of our community and our state, and we think we're an unknown, secret, awesome place. So if you enjoyed it, go back and tell your friends, okay? Tell them you had a great time in Detroit. Thank you.
Thank you.